Peace, 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 peace and blessings and elevation, kings and queens. Today you are in for a treat on this episode of the Freeway to Elevation. Today's guest is Kent Wade, aka the library guy. And so Kent is an advocate. He is a public speaker who brings transformative words to the forefront, elevating humanity, in particular young males, so that they understand where they started at doesn't have to be where they finished. Kent has a definitive story that I'm so excited for you all to be able to hear today. This brother is brilliant. And so without any further ado, I'm going to ask Ken to just give us a little bit more about you. Actually, before we even ask you to give a little bit more about you, I want to ask you to start us off from a space of being grounded. And so tell me two things that you're grateful for, Brother Kent.
Man, look, first thing is I'm grateful for life. I'm grateful for this thing called life. I just turned 35 last month. Shout out to the Scorpios. And this year really hit a little bit harder because a brother didn't think I would see 30, let alone 35, 25, let alone 35. And so many people have transitioned in such a short time in my family, my life. And I'm just grateful for life. And then the second component, I'm gonna be more definitive about what I'm grateful for. I love, I would say my family, but I want to be more definitive. And I want to say I'm grateful for my wife because my wife has really helped mold this gem, this rough person called Kent, and has held me accountable, but has also made sure that, you know what, the next step forward is always going to be the best step forward. And in this season, she's been having some trials and tribulations, but she's still there for me. And that is something I'm grateful for.
So we know who the rock tumbler in the family is.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely.
So, man, first of all, shout out to your wife for being that support, for being that encouragement, for being the rock that allows you to have a vessel to be able to shed your weight and take off some of the weight of the world so that you can continue to purge, relax, to breathe, and be who you are and what you are to our community. Brother Kent, so go ahead, dig in so we really can kind of tap into who the library guy is.
Yes, sir.
And let's start with, tell us a little bit about your story.
Man, I just want to first say thank you. As somebody who has heard your voice through Clubhouse, I've watched the podcast and the discussions. So to be able to be on this platform with you is an honor. So I got to give flowers to the platform for the curator and the vision. And so, again, my name is Kent, the library guy, Wade. And I'll take you a little bit of each part of my name, and that will, be a gateway into our conversation of my story. Hold on one second. Yeah, good old new T-Mobile phone. So is the name that my mother gave me. Linda Brown, the late Linda Brown. She was a mother of 4 children. She had 3 older daughters, and then she had 1 more child, and I was that last child. My birthday is October 28th. However, the due date was December 25th. And so what caused me to be born 2 months early was in that particular space in 86, the late 80s, early 80s, late 70s, in order to deal with the trauma, the issues, the pain, the drug of choice at that time was cocaine. And so my mother, my father, they had their life, and I was born 2 months early, underdeveloped lungs. My mother and my father, as I got to know the story, they were at odds, in that particular relationship. And so he left. And so Kent is the name of my oldest sister's boyfriend who took my mother to the hospital. And so I hated that name growing up because in the neighborhood, there was no guys named Kent. You feel me? My oldest son's mom, her mother thought I was a white guy when she when she told her who my name was. But I learned to embrace the name as I learned to embrace my story. And so about 2005 was when I actually got to hear my mother's voice for the first time. They're originally from California. So I was originally born in California in the Bay Area, Richmond to be exact. And so I left there at 8 because I went to foster care as an infant. I was too sick to stay at my grandmother's house. So my mother put me up for adoption. And so I stayed in a foster care home until I was 2.5. And then the late Addie Wade adopted me, and we moved from California to Illinois when I was 8. And so I struggled with my name a lot because I didn't know who I was. I knew something was missing. And when I heard my mother's voice, man, that was when all that anger, the frustration cracked. And so I got a chance to meet her. And so I got to hear more of the story. And so I was challenged by a guy to find out the definition of Kent. What does Kent mean? And I looked up the definition. I did a quick Google search, and it came up to be Scandinavian for calmly and finally born of fire. Calmly and finally born of fire. Now, I'm not Scandinavian that I know about, you feel me? But when you have a name, names have meaning, even if it's a combination of names, roots and the base words, they have a meaning. And so I began to develop that calmly and finally born of fire mentality. And so the library guy, my actual middle name does start with an L, but it's not library guy. But I'm called the library guy because I spent over 15 years at the Kankakee Public Library here in a small town called Kankakee, an hour south of Chicago. As a high school dropout, I ended up dropping out of school when I was 17 years old. And so the library was that safe space that we went to when I first moved to Kankakee. That's where all the cute, smart girls were. They had all the DVD, not DVDs at the time, they had VHS still. So there was VHSs that you could rent out. We had MySpace, so we had the little computers would be on, Black Planet. And when I dropped out, I was hanging out at the library. They knew my name, they knew my birthday. So when I dropped out, they felt comfortable enough to ask me, like, why are you here during the day? Like, you're here every day. What's up? And I was like, well, I dropped out of school. I didn't want to tell you guys because you guys would look at me funny. I kid you not, the lady said, nah, we ain't doing that. She took me upstairs to the youth services department. There was a lady named, she's still there. Her name is Camille Rose. We called her Mama Camille. She said, you're not dropping out of school. We're not letting that happen. So she took me to community college. I ended up working on my GED, and I got my GED that following year. I started working in the library officially that following year when I got my GED. And so from 2005, when I started working, until 2017, I worked in every capacity of the library: youth services, adult services, reference. I've worked in the circulation department. I worked where the books came in and I had to process them. I've even cleaned the building on several occasions when our janitors were out of contract and we were in contract phases. And so people knew me as that guy from the library in the streets. When I used to go to the liquor store, when I go to the bar, when I went to go to the high school football games, whatever, I was the library guy. And so I ended up working at the community college library for another 4 years. And so I ended up taking that library guy name because over that period of time, I learned how to tell my story. So my last name is Wade. And I'm proud to say my last name is Wade. I was born in Brown. My birth name was Brown, but I'm adopted into the Wade family. And so with my particular story and working inside the library, I learned that humans and the library world have two things in common. One, there are thousands and thousands of authors. There are so many there's a book for everybody. There's a magazine, there's a comic book, there's something for everybody. The second thing is each book, each bind contains a story. And with my own story and being able to articulate my story in such a way, I was able to bridge the gap to help people narrate and understand their story. And so the library guy energy poured out as I was defining Kent Wade and helping take their fear. And so that's me, man, in a small nutshell of, you know, my childhood, adolescence, and then stepping into a little bit of my adulthood.
Look, man, you know, I'm gonna get on you because I was expecting you to break, although Wade is connected to your current mother, I thought you was gonna break down the meaning of Wade too, bro.
Oh, well, Wade, I did just the library in me. I did look up the definition of Wade, and the definition that I had found lead back to the hymn wading in the water, making it through turbulent, or like it's a certain way, a certain height of water. It's at like a certain level that you're in and that you wade. Now, if it's higher, it's called something else, but it's making it through one side to another side. And then it's reference to the actual hymn, wade in the water.
So I needed you to bring that in for context because look, you got 4 elements, right?
Yeah,
Wind,
yeah.
Fire, water, and earth. And so
yes,
you got the 2 elements. So okay, if you talk wade and water and wading in the water, we know that water can go through, around, over, or under any obstacle.
Yeah.
Fire needs air. And so when you gave both those definitions, it speaks volumes, particularly with your individual journey, right? Like, I've heard you speak. I've heard how you articulate words, very precise and intentional, not wasting any words. And the power to be able to do that, particularly those 15 years you spent in the library, and was instrumental as I hear your story of how the library is what drove you to getting your GED. And then I know you're a service-oriented person.
Yes.
So you hold young men accountable to understand that they do have a purpose regardless of their circumstances. And you explain that. So before we dig into that, I would just ask that as we sit here and the things that you shared, which are extremely important, particularly the initial part of my career. I mean, I started in training schools, left training schools where I was a gang expert and behavior specialist, to running a program for people who had no hope and all who dealt with trauma. Now, you had underdeveloped lungs. And we talk about, you said 86. I grew up in that era.
Yeah.
Right? That was the crack epidemic. And I don't even want to get on how it was in Philadelphia at the time, but you was also in California, which that was, you know, that's where they was waging the war on drugs all across the United States. But California and the LA Police Department played a significant role in some of that story, and not even just the story, but the message that they was painting regarding, because I don't want to even get into the other part of this, which was freebasing and some of those other things, but just tell us a little bit about, to your point, you mentioned that you was in a space where you didn't even know who you are or who you were at that time. So share with the audience how foster care, your experience with your lungs and the trauma that you had to go through early in your life helped to shape the library guy.
You know, in your formative years, you know, as a child, you know, once you're past infancy, you know, you start to develop some memory. And so around 2, I remember living with a family. I remember a white family. I remember this white woman, you know what I'm saying, that I refer to as mom. I remember her face. I remember a birthday. I didn't stay there long. Once I got, you know, because as I got older, my adopted mother shared more information. My siblings, as I connected with them, started to share more information to make the puzzle fit. but I remember this lady, and then I remember her gone. Like, I remember her being gone, and then there's this older lady, Addie Wade, and she's there. So that transition, I remember the rough transition going from who I thought was my mom to this strange lady. And I remember the difficulty I had with bonding with my adopted mother. We struggled bonding for years, and I didn't know why. I didn't know why, and I didn't find out that I was adopted until I was in 6th grade. So I was going on 12 when I found out that I was adopted. And then at that time, we were transitioning again. We were moving from the suburbs of Chicago to a real rural area, real country. I mean, dirt roads, the whole nine. And so I shared that because for a long time, I felt like an incomplete puzzle. I felt like a very incomplete puzzle. When I went to certain neighborhoods, I didn't feel like I belonged. When I was with certain people, I felt alone. When I was with my own family, I've always felt isolated. I felt like I'm in the sea of a million people, and I was alone. And so on top of that, with my underdeveloped lungs, my chest cavities have indents. So where your pectorals are, at the base, bottom pectoral where it'll go into my abdomen, there's like it's like sinkholes. And then they go into my abdomen, at my stomach. And I struggle with playing shirts and skins. I struggled with swimming. I struggled with PE. I struggled with changing in the locker room because I was made fun of, you know, and now that when I got older, I realized kids don't know what's going on. And so unless they know, they're unable to actually identify. And so me being shy already, me already feeling incomplete, me feeling that I didn't belong, I never shared with my peers my story. And I didn't think about it at 11 or 12, you know, like the young men I work with now. 11 and 12, these brothers are able to have dialogues about dad not being there. They're able to have that exchange that in the early 90s, mid 90s, it was a struggle for me. And so my mother was very religious. So, you know, we went to church a lot. And so for me, the space that I had was really in my head, praying. You know, I would talk to God, but it would be always in my head. And so it developed a defiant energy. It developed a lack of confidence in certain areas. And so I was an A and B student going into junior high. When I found that information out, it sort of derailed me, and it caused my attitude to shift in a negative way with my words. Just like how you spoke about, I'm able to articulate, you can hear my story. I use the gift that God has given me. I used it then as a defense mechanism to tear down other people. And so, you know, that component really made me self-conscious. I dealt with depression. There was a time my mother, I was cutting on myself, and again, you know, because I take depression and suicide awareness very serious. And at that time, I thought this is what, if my mama didn't want me, who would? You know what I'm saying? You spend 9 months, 8 months in your mom, 7 months in your mom. If she doesn't want you, who would? And I felt like my mother, Addie, didn't want me. And so she caught me, or my nephew caught me, told her. I ended up going to the second, the psych ward unit. Very scary situation. So then I started stuffing all my thoughts down because I didn't want to be labeled crazy. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know how to explain what I had inside of me. So it was a real struggle, in a sense, feeling that like I was alone and incomplete. Like I'm this puzzle and I got all these holes missing, like, and then not feeling like I was wanted or desired, you know? And so that was much of my childhood going into my teenage years, man.
So as you mentioned that, so you said you felt like at this point you were stuffing it down. So you were suppressing everything that was saying Kent, the library guy, Wade, had no value.
Yep.
He wasn't important.
Yep.
Nobody loves me.
Yep.
I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not good enough.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And I'm dealing with the trauma associated with the underdeveloped lungs. And so I also have, psychologically, I'm dealing with what I feel like is not normal because I have these challenges as well.
Yep.
And so now we got other kids who already make names and pick and do things of that nature. And as a young person, we have these things that we call interpretations.
Mhm.
And so this is how we interpret the world, which helps to develop our limiting beliefs. So obviously, Mama Wade did something powerful because you today had overcome all those limiting beliefs.
Yeah. Whew.
And you believe, and not only do you believe, you understand and know that you are whatever you think.
Yeah.
And I know that, you spend a lot of time, 15 years in the library. You learn a lot vicariously.
Yeah. Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about, because it's one of the things that people don't realize. When we go through trauma, although we still had a traumatic experience, our awareness on many occasions is elevated.
Yeah.
And certain things is illuminated for us. So talk to us about how and when that transition occurred from Kent, who was dealing with the trauma, who didn't love himself, and who didn't think anybody else found value in them. When was it that the light came on and you realized who you truly were?
Man, look, I remember, and it's crazy, and to bring my mom back in it, because it was something she said. It was when I dropped out of school. I was living with my adopted sister. My Addie had got older. She was an older woman to begin with, and so when she got me, she wasn't really able to do, hang with me. I want to hoop. That was my thing. Fell in love with the court. We didn't have the money, she was very religious, so you didn't do anything on Friday nights or Saturday. And so I remember though, when I told my sister I was dropping out, she was like, well, you can't live here, because she had 3 kids already. You got to figure this out. And so when I dropped out, I went to stay with a friend's mom. My mom called me and was like, Kent, what are you going to do? I was like, Mom, I don't know. And at this point we're real strained. Like, she poured into my nephew, and she really didn't give me that affirmation, that confirmation. But when I told her what I was doing, I was like, Mom, I'm dropping out of school. I'm getting my GED. She said, I'm with you 100%. And so I'm like, I ain't never heard you say that ever. I come home with the all B's. I'll come in. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do that, and in the, like you said, when you was talking about the trauma, there are other things that are heightened. My empathy level, I can feel other people's energy, because I'm so drawn to myself that I'm aware, I'm watching everybody, because it's like, I don't feel here anyway. So let me pay attention to what's happening around me. So my ability to feel other people has been super heightened for years. But to express it, once my mom said, I'm behind you, she came up to the school. She was still living in the country area, but she came up to the school. She met with the people. She said, Ken is making this decision as his primary guardian. I am going to allow him to make this transition. She got with the lady that I was staying with, Miss Kathy. I love Miss Kathy, still alive. I love her. I love her. I love her. And my mom was like, he can stay with you, and I'm going to send a certain amount of money each month to help you help him. And that's when it was like, bing, bing, bing. And then the library was like, bing, bing, bing. And then I met this lady, her name was Lisa Weaver. It's the first time I ever dealt with a white person on this level. And she would come to our neighborhood with her car running, still get out her car, come and knock on, why aren't you in class? I'm in there, had partied the night before. You told your mom you was gonna get this GED. What are you gonna do? And then that's when the wheels started to turn, like, these people aren't letting me fail. They're not letting me fail. So I gotta have some. So as that struggle continued, my mother said a second thing. And this was that second moment where it was like the switch is flipped. She was in the nursing home, and this is where she started to really transition. And she told me, she was like, Kent, I just want you to know, because we used to argue all the time. Because I used to like, Mom, you used to beat me, man. Like, you used to be mean to me. Woo, woo, woo. Hold on one second. Sorry. She was like, you used to be mean to me. And she was like, you don't understand. And I was like, well, tell me. And she told me her story, Kelly. She told me how she was abused as a child. And I never knew she couldn't have kids until I was older. And so she couldn't have kids because of her abuse. And she told me, she said, Kent, there was something in your eyes, even at 2.5 when I got you, that told me you were going to be okay. There was a strength in your eyes. And she's like, and then your sister had her son at 18 and she wasn't ready. And so I took him in. That's why I took him in, because she wasn't ready. So in you, I knew there was something about you. And she said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I repeated the cycle of abuse, but I need you to know that I love you. And so at that point, Ludacris got a bar that says, hey, I might not be nothing to you, but my mama say I made it. So at that point, it was like, I gotta go hard. I gotta go hard. And then I had got the GED in 05. I got my associates in 2012. And then my son at the time, he was with me. My mom, they did this collage video and she was sick, man. And she was at the end of the video. And Kelly, I'm in the party, it was a surprise video. Shout out to my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time. She did the video and my mom was at the end and she was so weak. You could see it in her energy. And she was like, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. And then that following year, 2013, she ended up passing on, becoming my ancestor. She's with me everywhere I go. And those were those moments where it was like, nah, Kent, nah. You're calmly and finally born of fire. Metal goes through fire in order to get to where it needs to be. Diamonds go through fire in order for it to get to be where it need to be at. And so I learned to embrace that my pain was meant for me to be able to do what I do now, which is I needed for what I needed when I was a teen for young men now. That love. I met a guy, and I'm gonna end it on this. I work. I'm a man of all trades. I work, whatever it takes to feed my family legally. And so I right now I stock trucks for the seasonal, for this period at UPS. And so I had a lady come in last night, this morning. She was like, she saw my hoodie.
Pause 1 minute. I'm getting a lag. Hold on. You remember what you said?
Yeah. I was working at my shift this morning at UPS, and I had a lady come out of nowhere. She's coming in. I'm used to seeing people come in and they show them the tour because people come in and out. They don't stay. And she sees my hoodie and it says "Shake the Fear." And she was like, "What's your name?" And I was like, my name is Kent. And she was like, "Oh, so you the one that my son be up under?" And I was like, "Well, who is your son?" And she told me his name. I was like, "Oh, that's my boy." And when I say my man's be trying everybody's patience, but when I met him, I'm used to that energy. Where he's swelling up, or man, I don't care about none of this. And one of the first things that I told him was like, "Man, I love you, man." And he was like, "Man, you can't love me. You don't even know me." I was like, "Why can't I love you? Why can't I love you? I know that you putting up a facade." And so we worked with him over a period of time. So now when I see him on the street, "Hey, I love you, Mr. Kent. I love you too." And so to see his mom, and she was like, "Thank you." And I was like, "Well, that's my boy." But she said, "You don't have to say it. I know." And so that energy my mom gave me in that later years helped me understand the earlier years, because I'm able to understand when people say, "Well, I don't understand why these young brothers are killing themselves. I don't understand why they could take somebody's life." I have to let them know I understand. I be in my mode like, man, like, what is y'all doing? Like, are we tired? But I have to go back to that mind and I remember, so it's powerful.
So you went somewhere, and I want to stay there.
Yes,
right?
sir.
we talked about transformation and when the light went off. You talked about that moment where you essentially went from feeling one way to realizing in actuality what was going on. Your mother was vulnerable enough to share with you some of her trauma, and then she not only committed to you, but she allowed herself to choose to apologize and then explain that she realized, and I don't know if you connected that, but she was empathic as well, because she was able to understand through your eyes that you were going to be okay, and that you were not just special, but you was gifted in a certain way, that you were going to be okay, and that your sister was going to require a little more assistance and support, which is why she poured into your nephew. And then you took and you reciprocated everything that she gave you, transmitted the same energy, but transformed that energy. So this going back to that water, because see, when we talk about water, you being who you are, you're able to transmutate water into what you need to transmutate it into, so that you can give that young man what he needed and help elevate his perspective, how he feel and what he valued, so that it could help somebody else be able to do the same thing. So for these followers on the podcast, I need you to share with them how this made you feel and what's your purpose.
Man, this made me feel that my life was worth it. Growing up feeling that I wasn't worth it, feeling that I wasn't needed, feeling that my voice and my story didn't matter. I now understand that it always did matter. It always will matter, as long as I keep using it constructively instead of using it for the counterproductive, the countermeasures, which is to protect the insides, the jokes and the sarcasm. When you're vulnerable, you're pulling back the Band-Aid to let the air hit the scars. You're pulling it back. And when you pull that Band-Aid back, somebody else be like, oh, yo, I got that same one. And they'll pull a Band-Aid back. And so now I understand my assignment. I understand why I was put through what I went through, and that there are other people who went through a little bit worse than what I went through. So I had to count the blessing, even though I wasn't looking at it at that particular angle. And so my purpose has been for the last 4 years, is to help people shake the fear to unlock their ambition. Ambition is defined as a desire that requires determination and hard work. There's a desire that requires, it's not optional, it requires determination. That means getting through it. It means persistence. It means being, keep going, keep pushing. And then it requires hard work, which means you're going to sweat a little bit. You're going to cry a little bit. You might even bleed a little bit. But it's your desire. It's something that you really want. And fear has blocked us so much. And it really starts with us being able to open our mouths and say, hey, I received that. And so that's my particular mission through my story and when I speak.
So now I'm going to push this a little bit, right?
Yes, sir.
So as I allow your story to permeate my spirit, whose are you? From an energetic, from a spiritual, biological, physical, whose are you?
Ooh.
And you done already gave us some of it.
Man, man, that's a powerful conversation to begin with, because when we talk about, let's say, for you asking me, who am I? Whose am I?
Mm-hmm.
For me in particular, I am the highest powers child.
Okay.
I am God's child. I was put here in a circumstance that a lot of babies did not make it through. The crack epidemic was attempted genocide at its finest, again, for the Black and brown, the African, the Aboriginals. That was one of the last stand they tried to use against us. They're trying it again. But that late 80s, so many people did not make it. And so God put me here for this particular energy, for this particular purpose. Because if a crack baby can be a light to the world, if a crack baby, if this wounded individual, this person who didn't feel like they belong, now has an identity to I am humanity. My story transitions through any lens. I'm that book that you pick up and you're able to soak it up, regardless of whatever your color may be. But it's clear when you read my story that you're going to read it from a melanated man, a melanated father, a melanated husband, a melanated leader, a melanated change agent. And so when it's like, whose am I, man? Like, after being God's, it's like, man, like, I don't know. I can't really give a definitive answer. You know what I'm saying? Because the way he moved through, the way that God has transitioned me and has allowed me to go through that pain, I'm a walking book that people can pick up, that you can look at. Well, I have written some as well, but I'm that walking book that you can turn the page and you can find that chapter that you need. So, man, that you just gave me some homework, Kaylee, because that was deep.
No. So I loved how you framed it out. And for me, so I'm a big advocate of emotional intelligence, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can have you go get this certification, these 3 degrees, PhD, but that's all theory.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we talk emotional intelligence, we're talking knowing who I am, right? The quote unquote self-mastery, and then the ability to regulate that, right? And then transitioning on to the leadership piece, which is social mastery, which is me understanding people, me tapping into my intuition, me understanding my network is my net worth, and then the social regulation, how I lead and inspire others based on what I've learned, what I've watched. And so when I ask you, whose are you, right? When we can get to that space that we understand that we are the physical representation of the creator, who breathe breath through our nostrils so that we could be, right, the great I am. And then from that, we know who we are. Because once we know that the most powerful force in the universe made it possible for us to be here, then what other force can stop me from what I can see, what I can feel, what I can believe,
Yes, sir.
what I can hear? I understand that now, even if we're talking the school or prison pipeline, that force is not strong enough, because in order to destroy a force, you have to create a force of equal or greater value. Right? Yeah. So even if it's equal, nobody's moving. So there's no more pipeline.
Right.
I just stopped it. So we are part of the collective consciousness. And so it has to be collective lifts. Yes. Because Kent, the library guy, when he owns his space and I own my space, and then others across the universe own their space, then we move our collective community or village to a heightened space of humanity.
Yes, sir.
And I just love the answer you gave. And we're really trying to help young people, and not even just young people. Our elders sometimes need to hear something as well. And so the other part of the who's you are that you spoke to, we got the great I am, our creator. but also you mentioned it and you talked about your ancestor, right? Like, and I say and, right? I say and very strategically, because if you take and you flip it, right, what do you get?
DNA.
So DNA tied to what exists inside of us, because even if my mother's mother's mother lived eons ago, those DNA traits exist within me, which
Yes,
means
sir.
they are still with us. And so our ancestors are critically important because he was so powerful. They were so creative. So when I start doubting myself, all I have to do is reflect back to what those before me done. And this is important because when I realize what those who preceded me in this lifetime has done, then I realize the importance and the magnitude of those who are coming behind me, or who I must pass this baton to.
Yes, yes. Agreed.
It goes back to
Agreed.
your accountability point.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Because when I'm, say, like right now, our high school boys, they go on the state, you know, they're excited. I message individual ones like, hey, look, remember what we talked about? Remember Kent, we locked in. And I had to come to terms with it because a lot of people are afraid of death. I'm determined that when it's my time, when God sees it fit, that I leave on empty, that I make sure that I leave no stone unturned, no youth left behind. And like you said, no elder either, because I'm that middle child. I'm 35. I'm that middle child, as J. Cole said. I'm that bridge between what used to be, or what seemed to used to be, and what will be, and how we can come together and create something that will transcend what I will be able to see. And that's something that gives me a sense of peace, knowing that my 4 children, my 3 boys, my 1 girl, my godchildren, my community children across the United States, that they're going to take that baton. They're going to take that ambition, and they're going to make it wider. And they're going to take their youthfulness, and they're going to tap into their ambition and just move without fear. And that gives me a sense of peace, because I now understand what my role is moving forward, especially coming from the library world, because literacy is a very important piece for me. Literacy is very important. I don't care if it's a news feed. Are you reading today? Have you read today? Are you writing in full sentences today? That's all that, and being able to be that advocate, because I was a unicorn, man. When I became full-time, they used to send me to retreats and conferences. I would come with my hoodie on, and people would be like, oh, they weren't sure where I was supposed to be at. And one event, they actually told me, oh, the library's not open. You have to go and wait in the front. And I'm like, well, I'm the lead staff member for this particular party, and we're going in this way. And so to see a Black man in the library is monumental. And to bring the story full circle, I was that kid that was coming in, hanging out. I was eating the snacks. I was working in there as a teen, with team program. I became homeless. I became a staff member. I left, and then I came back to be vice president of the library board of directors. So it's about being able to take, like what you said, take what you learn and be able to give it back. Because now my role with ACES programs and equitable literature, what needs to be inside the library. So it's a higher elevation as you get higher into your craft, man, and into your passion. Because, man, we're standing on the shoulders of titans who went through things that me and you can only even imagine. You know what I'm saying? And you've experienced situations, because you say you were in that, you grew up in that era.
Yep.
I'm standing on the shoulders of men like yourself who have done this for over 20 years and doing this and doing that. And it's my duty to be another voice in another space in another way, so we can move that message along, man. And it's nerve-wracking, it's scary, it's frustrating. But when you know yourself, that self-mastery piece that you spoke on, when you have that clarity of self, and sometimes, bro, I have to look back at what I went through and be like, dang, I done already went through this. I can't feel like this right now.
Oh man. See, you got me warmed up now. So I got a couple more questions. And so real quickly, tell me what your greatest fear is.
My greatest fear is leaving this earth without accomplishing my ambition. And my ambition, my desire that requires determination and hard work is to leave my family. And again, my family is pretty broad, but to make it drive straight to the point, my wife, my 4 children, if I were to transition, I do not want to leave them with bills. I don't want to leave them without a game plan of what our family legacy will be like. And so we're developing that now. We're developing the wheels. We're working on, my wife just started her own business, left her job this year. And so she's creating 2 of her own businesses. She has an online jewelry boutique. And then she created a Black business directory for our community so that Black businesses not only can have, hey, you need to find somebody who does carpentry, you need somebody who bakes cakes, you need a host. Not only that, she's working with many different agencies so that Black businesses and future Black businesses are able to be taught the game the right way. So we have a desire to create something to pass down to our children so that the Wade legacy, the Wadeacy, as we call it, isn't left looking for somebody else to give it to them, i.e. particularly the government. That's it.
So I got 2 things. So
Yes,
I'm gonna
sir.
get some more homework, brother. So here's the homework. First of all, outstanding plan, but I'm gonna challenge you on that just a little bit. So as we talk, making sure that your wife and your kids, right? So when cities and counties and governments are planning, right, they plan out 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'll use increments of 5, 10, but literally they are normally like really focusing on, in 2020, they talking about 2040 and like a 2060 plan. So my challenge to you is to push you to not only think about your wife and your 4 kids, but think about your 4 kids.
Yeah.
It ties us back to true generational wealth, because if we look back, oftentimes we reflect on 400 years, but there was a time where we were thriving and flourishing, which superseded that 400 years. So in the same respect, we have to look beyond just one generation or our immediate generation, because that will make sure that we're not only ensuring our kids are successful, but holding them accountable to make sure that they're planning 3 generations, because it takes 3 generations to build wealth and only 1 generation to lose it. So that's why I'm pushing you on that. And then as you think about wills, since you're the library guy, I'm gonna tell you to do a little bit of work and start having some thought processes on trust.
Okay.
Because trust is an entity in itself, and it allows you to develop that wealth without losing some of the wealth because of the other things associated with it. So that's my homework for you. And then my last question for you, Brother Kent, is to give us your call to action on how those out here who are listening to your story, or who has a family member who may have experienced trauma and are experiencing difficulty right now in this very moment, what can they do to change their mind so that they can change their life?
Call of action. If you're listening, as you're listening, if you don't care if it's today, whether you watch this, the replay, I want you to do 3 things. grab a piece of paper, get that piece of paper, because writing is fundamental. It's something about writing that takes your thoughts to paper, and that paper seems to lift itself up. You're seeing your mind turn into a physical object. Write down your name, your full name, full title, because the title of your book is your name. Kelly Little, Can't Wait. That's the title of our book. In our book, there have been climaxes. Think about what you've experienced. Think about what you have gone through. And if you're confident enough, if you're able to do this, if you're able to because this will pull a lot of emotions out of you. And it's one of those things, like I like to call mirror talk, where you're looking in the mirror and you're having a conversation with you, not with anybody else, because we can do that well. Write down your climaxes. You can write little snippets, or you can write the whole entire story. At the end, when you're finished, when you purge that out of you, because it's out, I need a conclusion of your desired outcome. Now, the desired outcome hasn't been here yet. It's going to be what the end of your book will be like. And we don't know when the end of our book will happen. And so looking at your desired outcome, looking at what you would like the end of your story, the end of the Kent Library Guy's story, when I look at that, the conclusion, I have goals that I need to reach in order to make that conclusion happen. Whether that's going back to school, whether that's me and my wife partnering on our own business or our own podcast, whether, again, homework, looking at the trust, seeing what the next generation is going to look like, being able to see what your story looks like in plain day and not just in your head allows you to start looking at what the future can and should be for you. But sometimes we have to write it out and take it, like what they say, how you eat an elephant, you got to eat it bite by bite, bit by bit. So look at your story, look at it your way, not nobody else. Don't look at my story, don't look at Kelly's story, look at your story. How does your story look? How did it start? How has it went? But where is it going? That's what we have control over. So that's it. And then I would encourage people to open your mouth and speak to other people. Say hi. If someone says, hey, can I help you? Tell them what they can help you with. Because I remember on Clubhouse when you were speaking, you said, hey, Kent, man, I love your story. Hit me on the back channel. Let's have a conversation. I hit you on the back channel. And when I hit that back channel, you poured energy. You didn't ask me for nothing. You didn't send me to no website. You just said, man, young brother, I love your energy. If you need a resource, here's my number. That was it. But because I was able to open my mouth in a setting, you opened your mouth, and then we were able to form something that we now can form into something that man, I tell my wife, hey, we got family in Philly. we got you know what I'm saying? And so just open your mouth and speak. And so those two things are what I would like to leave with the audience, man.
Look, I need you to do me a favor. And definitely, like, it's so crazy because although born and raised in Philly, so I'm always going to be a Philly guy, but I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina now.
Okay.
So you got family in Philly and Charlotte, North Carolina, because my people still in Philly.
Well, we got North Carolina it's on our vision board as a destination spot for our planned move.
Oh, nice.
Our next planned move is North Carolina. We want to do some research and get some information, but we've been finding some things that where North Carolina right now is probably the top spot outside of California.
Okay. Well, look, you got a person and a resource that's here right now. So, when you start looking at those things, definitely reach out to me and I'll give you on the ground, real live stuff that's happening in that very moment in these cities and the growth that's going on, particularly in Charlotte, but also Raleigh and some other areas that are like booming right now. And like, here's the other thing for the audience. I need them to know where they can find you at on LinkedIn, where they can find you at on Instagram, Twitter, any of them.
All right. Okay. Man, on LinkedIn, I am Kent, the Library Guy Wade. On Instagram, I am the DA Library Guy. On Facebook, it's Kent Library Guy Wade. And it's the same on Snapchat as well. I don't really deal with Snapchat that much, but my I call them my babies. My babies be on Snapchat, so that's how I get them their information. But the Instagram, the LinkedIn, the Facebook, I had to get a TikTok. It's called The Library Guy 86. And I use those platforms to share my story, to shake fear, and then help other people just get through the day. Sometimes you just need to see a quote, a little funny meme. So you guys can check me out on any of those platforms. And then the website is coming soon. I had to rebrand it. My wife is, like I said she's my second thing is being grateful outside of breath. My wife has redone her website. So I'm like, I gotta redo mine. So I had to shut it down. And so it's coming back refreshed by the end of the month. It's looking like it's gonna be ready. But yeah, man, it's some things in the work that we've been working on. And I am the library guy.
And look, I told y'all he was gonna be fire. He shared a powerful story. It's a story inside of a story, because the story is about this experience. He's written books, but Kent, again, he told you your name is your story. And every last one of us has a story. So regardless of what happened in the past, your past don't define you. You drive your past to your destination. And that allows you to connect and align with your true purpose and who you are. So peace, blessings, and elevation. I look forward to seeing you all on the next call, but I want you all to silently, as you're reading this, give a shout out to my guy, Kent, the library guy, Wade. Salute.